I actually took the choice to close my business. Like, I could have continued. I could have found a way, and there's always a way. But I chose to close, and that was because of my mental health, my physical health. I didn't want to do it anymore. I'd run its course. I'd got everything I need. Like, all these reasons that are very personal to me. People are going to judge me for that. I don't want to work with you. I don't want to know you, actually. I don't want you to stay well away from me. If that is your attitude in life, just very politely, just stay away from me. You go and do your thing over there in your world of judgment and criticism, and I'll be over here with people like yourself having great conversations, supporting one another and lifting each other up rather than pointing fingers and going me. We'd created this business with no plan. It was a family business. Me and my mum and my dad had built it up out of nothing into this production facility, employing lots of people, churning out tons of cake every week. We had our name on the door, and you went on the website, it was all our family, and it was us. For 13 years, it was us. I was the cupcake man in Brighton. I was the guy who owned the bakery. My mum was, our identities were intertwined with the business. We were in debt, and to me it was a lot of debt because we'd invested money in the retail shop and invested in the business, and it hadn't worked out the way we planned. We'd failed, to use the correct term. Failure is lack of success, and success, the true definition is to achieve an aim or a purpose. So we'd not achieved our aim or purpose, and we'd failed.
Welcome to the County Business Talks podcast, powered by Picture Book Films. Here, we're going to be talking to entrepreneurs and business owners from across Sussex, delving into the mindsets of what makes them really tick. Okay, welcome to another episode of the County Business Talks podcast. My guest on the podcast this week is a shining example of someone who has built successful businesses from nothing. He has a deep passion for marketing, aviation, food and dogs, but he's yet to find a career that allows him to do all four together. I stole that one, mate. It's looking good. He has developed and ran multi-million pound campaigns for big brands across multiple digital channels. He has founded and run 10 businesses. He started a bakery in his parents' kitchen, ran it for 13 years and scaled it to a nationally recognised food manufacturing operation. He upscaled the manufacturing capability to launch a product on board Virgin Atlantic flights in 6 weeks, with 4 million units manufactured in an 18-month period. Completed an MBA amidst a global pandemic. He opened a physical bricks and mortar store and a live entertainment venue in an old jail. Launched an e-commerce website and associated systems from nothing in 24 hours, achieving £100,000 sales in just 4 weeks. Served over 4 million cupcakes on board Virgin Atlantic flights, not personally, I understand. No. and has starred on numerous TV shows, including Cupcake Wars in the US. I've followed his journey for some time and have been completely blown away by his openness and honesty to share his story, which over the last couple of years has clearly been a tough time. Today, he joins me to share the full story, and with it hopes to help inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs and business owners to have a life they love, not end up hating. I'm truly delighted to welcome Jeremy Jacobs to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, man. I was thinking, where did you get that? I know I wrote that, but I can't remember where that ended up. But yeah, that's very true. I can't even remember where you got that profile from, but yeah.
Mate, a little bit of research. Mate, listen, as always, we're just going to delve straight in.
Sure.
Just start telling listeners a little bit about yourself, about your business journey, where it all started.
Yeah, so, well, you covered it off pretty well. I think the kind of business journey, I've always been learning. I was thinking about this when I was writing my profile for my own website. Like my career started 26 years ago, but my entrepreneurial journey started 15. But I learned so much in those 11 years when I started out. My first job was in Argus, as in the catalogue store on Western Road, which doesn't exist anymore. That was my first job, and I remember my first day I turned up 5 minutes late and got berated by this evil woman who was running the store at the time. That was my first entry into into work, and I always worked in customer service roles, and I learned how to understand the customer and deal with the customer. So you could say it started back then, but in terms of my entrepreneurial journey and how I started, this journey of running my own businesses and working for myself, it happened in 2008, 2009 credit crunch, last big economic crash, whatever you want to call it. And I took voluntary redundancy from my career in digital marketing. I always wanted to be a web designer. That was my goal when I was in my sort of late teens. And I went off to uni and did a multimedia studies degree, which doesn't exist anymore, in London. And I just wanted to be a web designer. And I went and got a job thinking I was going to be a web designer. Turned out that I ended up working in a small agency. They actually still exist. They're called something else. They're based in Plus X, where we are today.
Cool.
And I ended up working in digital marketing. Got headhunted, went up to London, worked up there for a bit, and then the recession hit, and I took voluntary redundancy from my job. And I met my now ex-partner, and he had a job in Hamburg for 3 months as an actor. Okay. And so I had a bit of money, a bit of time, and I went, okay. I went off to Hamburg and stayed there for 3 months in the summer and didn't have to worry about paying rent. It was great, actually. I had a great time. But that was where I took the decision to work for myself. I always knew, looking back now, I didn't know at the time, that I was always destined to work for myself. And the reason was because I was such a... Can I swear? I don't want to be too rude, but I was a pain in the ass, to put it nicely. Young kid in his early 20s, arrogant, thinks he knows best. But I always would challenge stuff. I'm a very challenging person in the sense that, and my friends know me like this, and it does get me into trouble sometimes. I will always go, but why? Or question, or say I don't agree, or whatever. Sometimes when it's not appropriate, and I did that as an employee. My boss Jason, who actually I've got a call with next week, I apologized to him a few years ago. Said I'm so sorry for how arrogant and annoying I was. He said you didn't need to, but anyway. But looking back, I always thought I knew best. I always wanted to do it my way, and for me that is what has set me up as an entrepreneur, or that's the kind of entrepreneurial spirit I could see in myself. As I've aged, I've become more humble and less arrogant and more confident in my skills. And I don't always think I know best, but there's an element of me that wants to do it my way and put my stamp on it. So I left that career, I had this time, and that was where I decided that I'm going to give it a go working for myself. And I set up 2 businesses at the time. One was a consultancy business in the digital marketing space, which is what I did. And I then set up a website and a business for my mum as a little cupcake company. And the plan was that she would make cupcakes and send them around or deliver them around Brighton, and that would be it. We didn't get any more involved than that. And I built this website using the skills that I'd learned, be it as a web designer. That's what I wanted to do. I was hand coding HTML websites in 1996 with my mate, at college. Loved doing it, loved building stuff. Built this website for my mum. It's called Indulgence Cupcake Company. And then used my skills in Google AdWords, as it was called back then, now called Google Ads, to build a campaign and market her new business online. And we got a call within 24 hours from someone asking if we could do their wedding, which terrified us because we were like, yeah, we'd love to ruin your special day with our cakes that we've never served professionally. They never ended up doing it. But that was basically how we got started. Never had any intention at the time of seeing where the business, where it went. But I guess that's what happens when you start a business with no business plan.
Wow. So I'm intrigued. So just going back, looking at, you're saying that in your head you thought about running your own business potentially later down the line, but that was more coming from the fact that you was just potentially unemployable in that sense. Is that a lot of people that come on the podcast talk to me about it, and they say ultimately we're just unemployable, and that's, I guess, because because we're always asking questions, and maybe that we think we can do it better. Not always the case, maybe, but you do think like, I'm working with someone that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, I want to change that. I want to go. So was it like? But was you ever, from a younger age, was you surrounded by entrepreneurs, or did you ever look at that as a path? That was never a sort of thing that you thought of?
I did GNVQ business studies, advanced GNVQ business studies, which doesn't exist anymore. I have a habit of doing courses that stop existing because my degree doesn't exist anymore either. And I can't actually remember what I was thinking at the time. I think for me, I hate exams. I hate sitting down and that pressure of having to do. I was diagnosed with ADHD last year, although I already knew as a kid that I was neurodiverse. And so for me, that kind of sitting down and pressure and having to concentrate, didn't enjoy it. So for me, vocational coursework based qualifications like a GNVQ were well suited to me.
Yeah.
And I can't even remember my thinking. I must have had an interest back then around it all.
Yeah, sure.
I think going back to your point about being unemployable, one of the skills that I have developed is self-awareness, and also stop being such an arrogant bleep and thinking I know best. Because if I went to work for a company now and I was in a team where I felt like I couldn't express myself, or I thought things should be done a different way, and that team or those people didn't listen to me and have a conversation, then I wouldn't want to work with them. And I don't think, I've definitely gained a lot of humility, certainly over the last few years, that I don't know best. Like, I have a view and I have an opinion, but I might be wrong, and I'm willing most of the time to admit that I am. So it's definitely sort of developing over time, but I still want to grow and build my stuff and do it my way and put my stamp on it.
But I guess at the same time, because we talk about employing people, and we'll go on to that a bit later about culture and stuff like that, but ultimately you want to employ people that sort of push back a little bit, similar, I guess, in a way similar to yourself, and creating these, but because if you just employ yes people, they're just it is gonna be and sometimes potentially you employ people who are better than you at your role, so that you can oversee stuff, and they will push back on stuff, and you go, okay, maybe that way is going to be better. And I suppose, like you say, with experience and age, wisdom, whatever that looks like, it comes to you go, okay, maybe I don't always know best and be able to.
I think it comes down, for me, it's always about what business do you want to run, how do you want your business to run. And if you're someone who is that arrogant and think you know best all of the time, and you want to employ, there's lots of people that will be yes people out there that have that personality type, who are happy to just be told what to do all the time. If those people won't even get what I'm talking about because they're so arrogant. Thankfully there's not that many people on the planet, and that doesn't mean that their business isn't going to be successful at all. I don't think success is around how, personally, there's lots of examples of businesses that are run like that are massively successful. But for me, it's about what kind of business does Jeremy want to run, and how does Jeremy see business being done, and it's not that.
I love that. Okay, cool. I just want to talk a little bit about the birth of Varieties and stuff, like what you started with your mum, and was it so you've obviously set up a separate company as well, and then you've set up this with your mum. What, like you said, was it just a thing like you're just going to help your mum out? Was you going to get involved with that, or was it just I'll set this up for you and you crack on and
yeah, it was intended like that. I mean, my mum is everyone loves my mum. My mum's the most awesome, I believe, human being on the planet, and she's very knowledgeable and she's very skilled at what she does. And there's certain areas of business that she just doesn't have that skill and experience, or that drive to want to understand. I think I don't know. You'd need to ask her. So there were elements of technical stuff, she has no interest or willingness to want to understand how to build a website or how to run a website. Cool. So I took care of that because that was my skill and expertise. So I was always involved and invested in the business, but I don't believe there was any intention. I mean, if you had said 10 years later we had our own production facility with loads of staff, I would have I don't know what I would have said. I would have gone I wouldn't even imagine how we would have got there. But that was never the intention to grow it to that level. It happened, but that wasn't like, we didn't sit down and go, this is the intention. I was going to go off and do my own thing, and then it all changed.
And how did you talk me through a little bit about it? Because I'm so fascinated by it. Because obviously I'm half Greek. One of my passion projects, I'm half Greek Cypriot.
Yeah.
We're putting together our family cookbook. Me and my mum cook together. She loves it. Blah blah blah. So I'm really intrigued.
How it, I can talk you through it.
So talk me through the.
Yeah, so we've always had a passion as a family for food.
Yeah.
My nan, my mum's mum, passed away the year before we even contemplated starting the business. And we always used to love baking as kids. Just cakes mainly, and cookie, the bog standard stuff that, Victoria sponge and coffee and walnut cakes and all that sort of stuff. And my nan used to be a pro at making lemon meringue pies and stuff like that. So, and we just love food as a family, and that's how we connected. When she passed away, my mum used baking as therapy to deal with her loss, to feel connected to her childhood and years. It was something we did together as a family, and she just started baking and making lots of cakes and giving away to people. And people would come back and go, "Oh, these are amazing! You should sell these." But there's always that, when if you were lucky enough for your parents to say, to you, "You're gorgeous, you're so wonderful," and there's always that, but you're my mum. And the same with friends. There's this, don't necessarily believe it as much as you would if it came from someone. And I got my mum our first job. I was still working for in the company that I left at the time, and she was making cakes. And I said to her, "Do you want to make the cakes for our Christmas party?" And I asked the office manager, and she said, "Yeah, I'd love to." So she got her first paid job, and someone in the people were coming up saying, "Did you make these?" And there was someone in the office who I didn't really get on with very well, and we just didn't get on. Yeah. To say it bluntly. And they came over and said, "Oh, these are the best cupcakes I've ever tried." And it was that kind of validation from someone that had no reason to say it to me that made me go, "Oh, maybe we are onto something." And I said to my mum when I left, "Do you want me to build your website and see if we can get some business?" And she's like, "Yeah, okay." So we did. And it grew from there. You could buy 6, 12 or 24 cupcakes. These were the flavors. It was all very straightforward and basic. We did weddings, we did all that sort of stuff, and there was all the information people needed on the website, and they could order and all that sort of stuff. And we did that for a few years, and then I guess the next sort of step was someone contacted us to ask if we could put a logo on their cupcake for a corporate event. And I knew it could be done, but I didn't know how. So we said yes, and then we went and figured out how to do it.
Amazing.
Did that, which makes it sound really simple. We just did that. It was more to it than that. But I don't want to bore you with the detail.
Yeah.
And then that opened up a whole new market. So now it's corporate events. So then I went and set up a AdWords campaign about corporate cupcakes, branded cupcakes, logo cupcakes, and then the orders started coming through, bigger, more money. Started to fulfill those. We were all working at the same time, so most of that money went into the bank account and sat there. And then the next big break. So we started to move out of my parents' kitchen because we had a family friend that had a brownie bakery that they weren't using, like they'd set up, that they weren't using all the time. So we were kind of co-sharing that with them. And I just want to preference that, like, this was years of struggle and hard work. At the time, like, I remember getting a job for 300 cupcakes that had to be delivered to a open heart surgery conference in Tunbridge Wells at 7:00 on a Monday morning. And my parents went away, and I had to make them with my partner, and they all had to be different coloured icing. And I remember we were up till 4 a.m. I think I cried at one point because I was so stressed. Wow. But like looking back now, that was like, that was a piece of piss, really. Yeah. But so it was a struggle because it was all new. And
when you're getting, sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it.
When you're going through that process then, and you're starting to build, you're getting some bigger clients in, like then for like corporate and stuff. Was that period still from your mum's kitchen?
Yeah.
So you're still doing?
Oh yeah. So we could bake, I think, like what was it, 36 cupcakes at a time. And they were like 300, but it was at the time because it was like, if I'd have gone back now as me and went back in time to that point, I'd go plan earlier, get started sooner, like think this through, because it was all done last minute. I was working somewhere else, you know, it just wasn't managed very well, but you know, I did the best with what
you winged it.
I winged it, of course.
Don't we all most of the time?
Yeah, we all are at the end of the day. And so that went on for, you know, years. I remember doing another job for 2000 and having to get mates in, and these ones were done by hand, and they took 4 times as long, and it was just lots of that. So I just want to say that because it makes it sound like it was just boom, and then the next thing,
we sold a couple of cupcakes.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden we got a production.
Exactly. And then we set up a factory, and then that was it. And then Virgin was the next big kind of shift in our business.
When did that come about? What year? Like,
that would have been like 3 years in.
Wow,
maybe 3 or 4 years in. I can't remember. So we started in like 2009, and I think it was about 2012. I'm really struggling. Oh, maybe not. I don't know. I can't remember, Sam. Yeah, I think it was around that time. So Virgin had found us through our Google ads and contacted us to do a one-off job for an inaugural flight between Manchester and Vegas, and we made these tiny little miniature cupcakes with red and blue stars on, and we did them by hand, and they took forever, but we didn't care because we were like, Virgin Atlantic, like big brand. And I have a fascination, as I said in my intro, I'm an aviation, not stand at the end of runway geek, but not far off. I just love aviation. I love aircraft. I love planes. I find that whole world just amazing and beautiful. So I've always had and I love Virgin as a brand, and I used to fly to the US a lot with Virgin Atlantic, and I loved the difference between BA, which was very stiff upper lip British, nothing wrong with that, but I love the kind of cheeky tongue-in-cheek So I loved what Richard Brenton was about and all that sort of stuff. So I was kind of stalking them. And so when we got this job, it was a really big deal. So we did this job, and we now had the contact details of the in-flight services team who would manage the food. And then randomly on a Friday night, I remember sitting at home in my flat with a glass of wine, watching TV, and I was just online, and I came across this blog post on one of Virgin's blogs, and it was profiling these 2 people that worked in what was called brand alliances, and their job was to, I guess, look after brands working with Virgin and get them to spend more money and advertise and all that sort of stuff. And there was this, because they had a really cool job, and they profiled these, and I just put a comment on the bottom. I've got a screenshot of it somewhere where I just said, oh, you know, we've worked with you before, we'd love to work with you again. How about cupcake decorating classes at 35,000 feet? And she emailed, and I put my email address, and then she emailed me like 3 days later and said, do you want to come, shortened version, come in for a meeting? And I was like, oh my God, like Virgin want us to come in. So I made these cupcakes with Virgin Atlantic tail fins. I'm still very proud of them. They looked amazing, and I went in to meet them. I always tell this story about, I even colour matched my socks. I had Virgin red socks on, and I showed her in the
little things, little details, mate.
Oh, I love how crazy I am sometimes. And I went in to meet her, and I was like, oh, hi, and she was so lovely, and I said, I'm so excited to be here. So I even put Virgin branded socks on. I was like, pulled my trouser leg up. She's like, loved it. We went in, had this meeting, met with the in-flight services guy who was dealing with it, and he said, you know, love what you're doing. Can you make about 5,000 to 7,500 cupcakes a day? And I went, yeah, of course you can. Have a clue how I was going to do it. But I said yes, and left the meeting. And I think it took about 4 to 6 months until we got to the point where they said yes. There was kind of backwards and forwards.
Yeah,
and, if you're familiar with that, how aviation food works, there's often a logistics company like Gate Gourmet or someone that manages that. So we had to work with them to develop the product. And they said yes. I remember exactly where I'd just come off the M25. I was on hands-free, so I was safe. And I got a call from the woman from Gate Gourmet, I think it was, and she said, Virgin want your product. I was like, ugh. Okay, great. Put the phone down for my mum. We've got Virgin. I'm getting excited even talking about it.
It must
And then
have been like that feeling around that. Oh, we go on, we talk about it, we'll go on to other bits and pieces, and the difficulties and stuff. But those moments of that journey, the business journey as a whole, trying to enjoy that, and them wins, things like little bits like that come in, is what makes it worth it.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. It's the highs are why we do it. You get a massive hit of dopamine and all those wonderful chemicals, and it's great, and it feeds our brain, and it's very exciting. It's very enjoyable. It's those moments should be celebrated. Absolutely. There's a moment of yes, and then there's like, oh fuck, I've now got to go and deliver on this. Then we had 6 weeks to turn it.
What I love, I've heard you say it a few times actually, and what I love is the fact that the amount of times along that journey, the amount of people have gone, oh, can you do that? Whether it be, can you get 30 cupcakes to us tomorrow, or 300 or 3,000, whatever that looks like. No idea I'm going to do it, but yes, say yes. Yes. Learn later, go and...
Yeah, I think that's... it's... I've done it a lot, and I think probably a lot of entrepreneurs would do the same. I was just hesitating because I worry that sometimes you can end up potentially damaging your reputation or your relationship if you say yes and you really do overcommit. But it's worked for me up until now, and I've always thought if they're doing it, like I live in a world of possibility. If they're doing it, I can do it. Yeah. That's how I've always looked at it. If I can't do it, I go and find someone else that can. And that's what we did when we got the contract. We then went and found a even bigger bakery established, and they co-manufactured the product for us. Yeah. Or certainly the bases. And then we hand finished them, packed them, put them on the van, drove them up to Virgin. But the amount of things we got wrong and the amount of times we failed in those first probably 3 to 6 months is monumental. I could write an incredibly long list of all the mistakes we made. Just to give you one example, the labels that we put on the product looked lovely. They were like a watch strap, so the cupcake went in a plastic tub with a lid, and then it was called a watch strap, so you sort of wrapped it around. When we started that in production, it was an absolute nightmare. I had to call the customer up and say, we can't do this for you. Like, we need to change the label. And they were really disappointed. They really loved, that's what the product they'd ordered. Yeah. So it was really difficult to have that conversation. But I had to have the conversation because I knew we would not make any money. Yeah. So in hindsight, when the business doesn't exist anymore, we would have tested that first before we went and committed to the customer. So you live and learn at the end of the day.
I guess that's the beauty as well of you looking back, but of being on that journey. It is all a learn. Life in general is a learning curve, isn't it? We live, we learn, we fail, we make mistakes and all them things in between. But I'm just a strong believer, similar to you. I just always think that life's an opportunity. I'd rather do something and it not work out than not do it. And
I don't always think like that though. That's not how I think all the time. Like, I'd love to sit here and tell you that is, but there's lots of opportunities and lots of things that I don't do in life that I'm fearful of, and I can see it and I'm working through those, but that fear puts me off. And if you look at when I started the business in 2008, 2009, I had nothing to lose because I'd left a job. I'd been given some money to tide me over. I knew I could always go and get a job back in that industry. I still could. I had a conversation with the guy who got me my first job when I moved up to London. I can go back and do an account director's role in a search agency tomorrow easily and earn a decent wage. I know I can always go and get a job somewhere else, but I had nothing to lose. And I guess really the arrogance that I had when I walked into Virgin was, what have I got to lose? I can either say yes or no. If I say no, the opportunity will never present itself. If I say yes and fail, well, then I might as well just stop. If I can't get this to work, I might as well just not bother. So, I think it's about what is at stake.
Because you say it's interesting in what you say. It's even even though you have started businesses and you run them, and like I say, we will go on to what failure and bits and pieces like that look like. But you still look at stuff now with opportunity like that. There's still that fear of failure that you look at with other opportunities, or what's your relationship like that with that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's about. I think there is an element of failure about risk versus reward, and how much time and money am I going to go and invest.
Yeah.
It's more about judgment, and it's more about, am I capable? What am I doing? Imposter syndrome sort of stuff. Because if I was really unleashed, then I would be doing way more than I would be right now. A lot around sort of social justice and DEI work and having a voice, and I'm working on that, and that's where I see myself going. But I really see myself. I know I can get massively stopped. Fear of judgment, definitely fear of failure, but mostly judgment.
Really?
Yeah, I think we all have it, unless we're narcissists.
Do you think that comes from a lot from like that with social media, like validation that we sort of partly crave from other people? I mean, obviously social media highlights that so much more, doesn't it? You put a post out and you don't get the likes that you thought you was going to get, and then but if you do get loads, you go, oh God, everyone loves it. But I'd be lying if I sat here and said to you, I'll put a post out, I'll forget about it, I don't care if anyone engages. Of course, I put that post and look how many, of course, and we get that validation, and that's whether that's in a physical form or whether it's from
I want to say, first thing I want to say to that is I completely agree. I had it a couple of weeks ago, and the right strop, because I was like, I'll put this post out. Do you know what I do? People know about me. I'm really honest. I really don't care about saying some of this stuff. I will go and look at people's posts, and I'll look at how many comments they've got and likes, and then I'll go, right, when did they post it? Oh, they posted it a day ago. Oh, mine did better. And then I'll sometimes go through the profile and see how many followers they have. Oh, that's a percent. I do all that. I don't care saying that. I know other people do that. And then if I get a post that goes through, well, I'm the best human being on the planet. Look how good I am. Like, that's my ego talking. But we've only just properly met today. But I remember you posted about your running Brighton Marathon the other day. And I just wanted to say, I haven't said it to you, but the joy I got from reading your post, your smile on your face, your energy, it made my day, and it gave me a little glimpse in the middle of all of this bullshit that's going on in the world right now. It gave me a glimpse of happiness and hope. But I didn't actually communicate that with you. And I think we can become... we do. I know myself, I've become quite lazy lazy, not in a judgy way, but I'm really interested in understanding the true meaning of words, and lazy just is essentially not making an effort. There's no judgment there. It's just I didn't make the effort to communicate that with you, but it made an impact. So I do try and remind myself that I don't know who is being impacted by what I share, but I know people are. But it's easier said than done, isn't it?
And definitely, like you say, there's probably some like I say, one of the reasons we're sitting here, I guess now, is from reading your post, when at that open, honest post that you put out when you obviously had to close, which tons of comments, but you've obviously that alone, you'd created an impact by the business that you'd own, and people that have seen that journey and been on it with you or whatever. But ultimately, people who didn't know you, like myself, for example, who was touched by that and gone like, wow, what an amazing thing to actually put it out there and be as vulnerable as you were on that post, and say, this is it. And from that as well, like I say, from that sort of looked at your journey now and where you are and what you're trying to achieve and bits and pieces, which is why I was excited about you coming on and just having this conversation. So it's, I guess the key is ultimately, but the more stuff that we put out there, the more authentic and honest it is. They're the ones that tend to be popular, but people buy into, because people still buy from people, whatever that looks like. And that, I think
I'm really tired. I'm actually really tired and sick and tired of people running around pretending everything's okay when it's not. The impact on people's mental health, my own and plenty of people I know, depression, anxiety, suicide. I know I've had suicidal thoughts in the past. all of this sort of stuff. I'm sick and tired of it, and I'm sick and tired of people judging other people for being open and honest. And for me, the only way I can do anything about it is to lead in that moment. Sometimes it's deeply uncomfortable to put myself out there, and there may be people listening to this judging me or whatever. But I've just got to that point where I'm past caring. If someone's going to attack me or make me wrong or attack me personally or judge me or whatever, then that's on them. And I kind of guess armouring up against that, because the people that I care about and care about me would never judge me. And I'm going through this process in my life where I'm being very careful about who I have in my life, and and putting boundaries in place. So you're of course going to get people coming at you on social media when you do put yourself out there, and it's not easy. I can't profess to say it is, but if I'm so far removed from someone and they're going to make a nasty comment, I'm just not interested. Excuse the language. F off and leave me alone. And it's really important for me just to say that that's not about making them wrong or judging them or counteracting their aggression with aggression. It's just ignore it and do my best to ignore it. We all get triggered. We all have our own stuff going on, and I want to try and be compassionate as much as possible to other people. But that's where that's all born out of. And so for me to share that I've closed my business and it's really difficult, it's hard, but at the same time, I don't see any other way, because I want people have approached me and said, I get it and I'm really struggling right now. Can we have a conversation? And I've helped them. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. It was because I remember commenting on it and because I remember thinking to me, like, I've been there, I've closed a business. Horrible feeling. Something I don't probably ever want to go back to. But it's not stopped me from doing other businesses or doing other stuff. But I think the message that you was putting across, and the message since then that you've tried to put across, is aligned so much with our. I think the amount we can learn from failures and being honest about them and changing that narrative, like, because you're right, there's something. I had a guy, a friend of mine, James Dempster, who was on here. He come on episode 2, I think it was, when I first started out, and he was sort of saying about, almost like in the States they wear sort of like it as a badge of honour, like if you've been bankrupt or whatever that looks like. Not I'm saying that's necessarily the right way, but I just think that because in this country, you see, they failed, not a very good business person or whatever that looks like. And that's such a terrible narrative that to be, you know.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it's the narrative, it's the way people think. I do believe deep down, if I was not, the voice in my, or the sort of the how it plays out in my head could be, well, if you were a good business person, then your business wouldn't have closed. I actually took the choice to close my business. Like, I could have continued. I could have found a way, and there's always a way. But I chose to close, and that was because of my mental health, my physical health. I didn't want to do it anymore. I'd run its course. I got everything I need. Like, all these reasons that are very personal to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if people are gonna judge me for that, I don't want to work with you. I don't want to know you, actually. I don't want you to stay well away from me. If that is your attitude in life, just very politely, just stay away from me. You go and do your thing over there in your world of judgment and criticism, and I'll be over here with people like yourself having great conversations, supporting one another and lifting each other up, rather than pointing fingers and going me.
Love that. Brilliant. Look, let's.
Sorry,
mate. This is. I love this, and this is what I love about the conversation, because you have a bit of a structure to the podcast and some certain questions you want to ask, but I love it that we just roll with it, and this is what it's about. But I do want to talk. Obviously, we're alluding to that post that you put out there at the time of when you obviously you announced that after 12 and a half years you had to close it. Just talk to me a little bit. You said about your mindset around that time, and you made the decision to close that, but just talk to me a little bit about thoughts, feelings, mindset, everything around that time.
So I have to be careful about how I say this because there obviously are people that have been impacted by my decision to close. At the time, we did have to close quite quickly because we took that decision and the way it was. I'm not going to go into the details of the legalities and the finances of it. When I say I could have continued, it's like there wasn't really much. It didn't feel like there was much choice at that point in time. I could have gone and got investment or whatever, but I took that decision. How it actually happened was it started long before, years. I think years before, if I'm really honest. We'd created this business with no plan. It was a family business. Me and my mum and my dad had built it up out of nothing into this, production facility, employing lots of people, churning out tons of cake every week, and we had our name on the door, and you went on the website, it was all our family, and, it was us. For 12 and a half, 13 years, it was us. I was the cupcake man in Brighton. I was the guy who owned the bakery. My mum was, our identities were intertwined with the business. And it provided a lot for our family, but it was also a source of frustration, stress, as anyone who runs their own business knows what it can be like. And my dad retired out of the business because he had heart surgery, and then my mum retired a few years later. And so for me, I felt this sense of duty to carry this name on to make it work. Although my mum and dad never for one moment ever said that to me. It was all in my own head. And so there were points earlier down the line, probably 6 years before, maybe, or 5 or 6 years before, where I probably should have closed the business, but I carried on. Well, actually, should I have closed the business? No, actually, but there was moments, lots of moments, this is not working. Why are we still doing this? But we were in a lot of debt. We were in debt, and to me, it was a lot of debt because we'd invested money in the retail shop and invested in the business, and it hadn't worked out the way we planned. We'd failed, to use the correct term. Failure is lack of success, and success, the true definition is to achieve an aim or a purpose. So we'd not achieved our aim or purpose, and we'd failed. And then so we had debt, and I had personal liabilities. So they felt like there was no choice to continue, and we did. And I got the business out of debt and into a cash positive position. And up until COVID, the business was flying, literally. Like we were going to be doubling. We were doubling our turnover like every year. Wow. Our revenue, our net margin was industry beating by far. We were doing really well. We were very efficient. We had a team that were extremely happy. Everything was going really well. And then COVID came along and pulled the rug from under our feet. And for me personally, I get that there's lots of people who have been affected in different ways, but for me personally, this was the thing I was fearing the most. And any business owner, that's your worst fear.
Of course.
Your business closing outside of your control. And that is what happened. And I spent 18 months, however long it was, working incredibly hard to make that business work. Plus, I did an MBA at the same time. Chuck that in there.
Chuck it in there.
Chuck that in there. Not in a look at me, I'm so amazing, but just to get the level of stress I was under. Again, it's all a choice, but I was under an immense amount of stress. I had to let staff members go who had worked for us incredibly hard, and I got on with really well and really enjoyed working, and having to sit down and go, I'm sorry, I can't keep you on. All of our business was in travel and retail, collapsed overnight. The recovery was slow. It still is. And I just got ground down over 18 months and entered into a new relationship. And that was what really highlighted the level of stress I was under, because I was an utter arsehole at points. I was so stressed out. I was having really severe mental health problems, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, the whole lot. And even then, sometimes I remember standing in the street going to my partner, I don't want to go to work, I've had enough of this, and then getting in the car and driving off to work and being at work like exhausted. I had COVID in July. The recovery was really slow from that. I was exhausted on every level. It sounds very dramatic. but it does make me
Is it?
emotional thinking about it.
Yeah.
It was hard, and there's this temptation, particularly we talked about before we came on, about this culture of the hustle and the grind and the la la la, and that is just so damaging in my view, because I felt like I had to keep on going, and then and I didn't see it at that point when I was stood in the street having a meltdown to stop them. But I've learnt a lesson from then to recognise when I'm at that point of enough now. And then I was walking my dog a few weeks later on Hove Lawns, and my partner and my mum were both texting me independently, and I was so agitated and so frustrated. And I just was walking along, and I just went to myself, I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to do it anymore. Who said I had to do this anymore? I can stop. Like, I remember when I had a job that I hated when in my early 20s, and suddenly realising, just go and get another job. And I did. And I gave myself permission in that moment to stop. And then for me, I know myself. Once I make a decision, I'm laser focused. And so I text them both, and I went, I'm done, I'm closing the business. It actually makes me emotional thinking about it.
Wow.
I'm quite tired today, so... it makes me emotional thinking about it, and I.
What was their reaction?
Well, my partner, he's never run his own business. He's a train driver. He's an amazing human being. He's very understanding. He's very caring, but he just doesn't get it. It's like, why would he? And that's no judgment on him. He just doesn't understand. So it's hard for him to understand. My mum was just fully behind me. She was like, whatever you want. Most mums want their kids to be happy.
Course,
and then just went through that. Again, it makes it sound like it was a walk in the park. It wasn't. And then went through the process of closing the business down. Just to say that I'd already had conversations with an insolvency practitioner, with my accountant, to go through what would need to happen, because I was so new to, I've never closed a business before. I didn't know the process. So had a conversation with the insolvency practitioner and said, I want to close. And there was an option to sell, but I was like, I'm done. I need out now. He's like, we can try and find a buyer. It's maybe take a few months, but I had customers, and I didn't want to. I just was like, this is not going to work. I just can't even. I can't even bring myself to show up anymore and do this. I need to stop now. And we did, and had to have some very difficult conversations. Everyone was actually incredibly supportive. Our customers got it. Everyone pretty much got it. Even someone who I'd hired a few weeks earlier and take them out of a job. They were on a contract. But I had to have that conversation and say, I'm sorry, but I'm closing the business. And he was upset. He calmed down eventually, but I hate those conversations.
I think no one, as a business owner, no one wants to have them. They're not nice conversations to have. No one wants to let other people down. But I guess ultimately a couple of things really. One, do you look back, in hindsight, looking back now, at obviously when you close and look at the journey of raising it as a whole, do you still, we mentioned failure, blah, blah, do you look at that as a failure?
Oh, that's a really good question. Like closing the business? Well, I don't know. I mean, you can ask. We know the world is so divided on opinion over everything. So ask many people the same question, you'll get a different answer. For me personally, yes and no. That's a difficult one to answer, and the reason I say that is, did I want my business to? It is to a certain extent, because the purpose and the aim of my business is to continue, and it's not. So that is a failure.
But a couple of things, like one thing, obviously, like you said, there's certain circumstances completely out of your control. So one thing I remember, what I felt at peace with myself when I walked out of the set, because I'll be honest with you, I run that hair salon for 3 years. I commuted for 2 on my motorbike from Essex to Brighton 7 days a week. I look back now and think, why did I do that? It was crazy, but I've done it. And I admit, probably 18 months in, was like, this isn't right for me. I can't carry on doing this. I've got to get out of whatever that looked like. It wasn't going in the right direction. It was such a tough industry to be in. And But I did take a bit of time. I took a week out, and I come back. I started another part of the business, the Shave Academy, and etc. And a couple of other bits. But for me, I remember then walking out when I closed them doors 3 years in, going, with my hand on my heart, I felt that I'd done everything I could to keep that business going up until that point. And then, so of course it failed because I closed it and I lost money, and financially I was, it wasn't great for us and blah blah blah. But so I look at that as a failure. But I still am at peace with it in the sense that I could stand in front of people and go, I've done 7 days a week, silly amount of hours, and I'd put my blood, sweat and tears into trying to make that a success, and it wasn't. But
yeah, it's a really good point, and I agree completely. Like, I put everything into it, and I think this is what I've noticed since I've closed the business. This is a bit of a concern / trap for me, and I'm still exploring it, so I'm not quite clear on what it means and how I'm going to deal with it. But what I've noticed is that, so now we're sort of early part of 2022. I'm noticing how one of the reasons I closed the business was I wanted to work differently, and I didn't want to continue to work in that way. And so I'm now creating a new career for myself where I build a business around my life and not a life around my business. And so part of that is working when I want to a certain extent, etc., etc. And so, I've lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? Sorry.
We're sort of saying, because one thing obviously I want to touch on there as well. Like, did you feel with you're trying to change the way of working, so your work is around your life. Well, did you feel that then, because I remember feeling at the salon, because I had somewhere physical to go, like it was a business that I had to be there to open them doors and let people in or whatever it was. Same with you, I guess, with the manufacturing side of it. Did you almost beholden to that? You know that you've got to go in and open them thing, or you've got to oversee that, or make sure someone's in there. That's that release and that relief when I could go and go, I haven't got to go and open them doors today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, I had to travel 35 to 40. Well, it's actually 45 minutes because I dropped my dog off at my parents. Over to Worthing every day in the car and back again, and that was every day. I didn't work 7 days a week most of the time, but yeah, that relief of I don't have to do that anymore was definitely a positive. But I remember what I was going to say earlier, but it was about that pull to want to work in that way of the old way, and I noticed I did this a lot in my career. I thought to myself, if I give it everything and I put myself over fully to my business and it doesn't work, I did everything within my power. And now I question whether or not that was the appropriate way to work. Like, is that a question for everyone who runs their own business? Is that how you want to work? If that is, then great. But that is, for me, what most people deem success, like high revenue, huge company, massive growth, scale, all those words that people in the entrepreneurship world, and we all want to retire at 28 with 150 million pounds in the bank like Stephen Bartlett, and look at him, he's so amazing. He is, don't get me wrong, but that is what I would say a lot of people see as successful. And you do have to work really hard, and you do have to go all in. But there's also a lot of circumstances outside that when you dig into people's stories, I'm not talking about Stephen necessarily, but if you dig into people's stories, you start to find out this opportunity, this thing that happened that supported them get to where they are. It's not as simple as people make out to be, very rarely, in my opinion. And so my question to myself and other people is that what you're really after? And if you are, great, and then go nuts. Or are you chasing something that you feel like you want, but actually when you sit down and think about it, you go, oh, actually, I don't want to work like that because that's not what's important to me. And that's what happened. And that's what's happened to a lot of people in this pandemic. Oh, actually, my family and my health and my well-being and my experiences are more important to me than having 150 million pounds in the bank. Trust me, if you came along to me tomorrow and said, do you want 5 million pounds? I'd bite your hand off. Yes, I want a bigger house. Yes, I want a nicer car. Yes, I want to go on longer holidays. Yes, I want I think for me, money allows us access and freedom to more stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't buy you happiness. It doesn't make your life better. It just allows you to do more whenever you want, that freedom, in my view. Putting on top of all of that, the fact that, you know, we live in a very privileged society where we live. So having some humility around that. But I think for me, what happened in that moment and what I need to remind myself more often is I don't actually really, that's not what success is for me. Success is, I didn't come in till 10 o'clock today. I don't have to answer to anyone. I had to answer to you because I had to come and meet you. But I have that freedom. And that for me is what working for yourself buys. The not having as much money because it's especially at the beginning of that choice. I hope that makes sense. It makes sense in my head.
It really does, and it's something I find fascinating because this is what I talk about this a lot, and I find it because ultimately I was one of the I'm probably more ambitious now than I ever have been. Yet for probably slightly different reasons. If we'd had this conversation when I'd started the salon at 30 and I started my business journey, multi-millionaire, Ferrari, big house, that was my goal. I was, you know, in my head that was, I'm going to be this successful businessman who turns over millions and has franchises all over the place. This is who I'm going to be. And like I said, going through that journey, that failing, and then running the other businesses I have, looking at the businesses I was running, going, these are not going to make me millions. Am I doing the right thing? What? Then getting to near 40, going, I haven't achieved. I'm nowhere near. I'm not financially free. I'm working all the hours, and I'm still. But partly, I do enjoy the businesses I run. So okay, that's good. And what I've done when I was going through my struggles, I changed the definition of success in my head in regards to if I died tomorrow. I looked around and all these people I was surrounded by. I've said it on this podcast a few times, but I was surrounded by lots of people who loved me, who I loved, and I was like, I've experienced love in different forms. So I'm a father. I've got my brother, who's my best mate, blah blah blah. So for me, that was just like, all right, people would probably go, he's quite a look at. That just changed. So, and from then, that got me out of my lull, I think, of where I am. I think this is why this conversation is so interesting, because I think the definition, like you said, the definition around success of what it looks like to people, the narrative is got to get to that 100 million, want to get to this destination, I'm going to create this thing. But even, you mentioned Stephen Bartlett, he does mention, I went to his live podcast and he's mentioned a few times, like even in his book he says that he promised himself this euphoria moment when he gets his worth 30 million, and he said it was the lowest point. I went through a dark time after that because there's not that euphoria moment. Money doesn't buy you what you think happiness.
He's welcome to hand it over to me if it's not making him happy. I mean, there's that thing is that my honest response is, oh, my heart bleeds, Steve. Like, to anyone who says that. And that takes away from the fact that he is still a human being and he still has emotions. There is a little element of me that goes, fuck off, Stephen, right, mate? Like, poor you.
You got 30 million band in the back.
But it's a good point. He does make a good point. You know, I do want more, Sam. I do want more from life. Of course, we all do.
Why, if not, why do we go to work, or why do we do these things? If you just wanted to live and you go, oh, I don't need to work 14-hour days like I am potentially sometimes. I don't need to do that because I want to just go. I only need a minimal amount of money to be able to provide something. But I want my kids to have everything they want, and I want to be able to provide for them and have nice holidays and have them nice things. And I think people say, I don't need any. Well, we don't need them, but they're nice things to have, and that's why we do work hard. Hopefully we can create roles for ourselves that generate enough of that money, but doing the things that we love doing, like this, for example.
Exactly. And it's about having, for me, it's about having, it's the woe of people that live in the southeast of England and in certain parts of America. I'm going to be really blunt, mostly white, privileged, the privilege that we have grown up and we can afford to be able to have that. And I had to, and it's a balance for me in not beating myself up about that and acknowledging that as part and valid of what my concerns are and whatnot, but also having gratitude for what I do have. For me, it's a balance between the two right now. And I'm very grateful for what I have. I want more. I think that's the case for most human beings. But for me, it's really important to be able to acknowledge You know, what there's so much more. Look at what's going on in the world right now. It's painful what is going on in the world outside of even just what's going on in Ukraine. It's just my heart hurts, and so for me, that's why it's important to have these conversations. To just go like, let's just take a moment and just appreciate what we've got. And is this what are you chasing? A pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and just have a moment. Because it's very tempting and very lovely to want to have those things, or to get those things. Yeah. But there's an impact. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. But so we talked about, obviously, it's great that you've mentioned about what sort of success maybe looks like then for you. But what over the course of the journey, like you said, there's some sort of highs, lows, and all, and we talked about the failure parts of it. But what would you say, like throughout that career, was the Virgin? Was that the high? Was that something that like your greatest achievement, would you say? Like your proudest moment, that day that you got that phone call, was that the euphoria moment that you was like, oh, I've done that?
Oh, I don't know, actually. I did actually write some notes down about that, because I was thinking when you asked me that question. Yes, like I wrote down 3 things. Virgin. Yeah. Because that was the most obvious time. I remember exactly where I was, and that elation, and
you could
what it
tell
opened up. Exactly. And the same when we won the contract with Number One Lounges, we were supplying all their sweet baked goods, and so I remember going into the lounge and our cakes were all out. I remember sitting next to this family with my mum in the lounge, and someone was eating a piece of our brownie, which we were very well known for. And no one can have the recipe ever. And and they said, oh, it's like a little piece of heaven. And we were like, we leant over and went, sorry to interrupt, but we made those. And they were like, oh, they're so amazing. So stuff like that. That was really cool. But there's plenty of other things that I'm proud of. Proud of completing my MBA and posting in the top 10% of the class when I wasn't never saw myself as an academic. Yeah. Again, that's not to show off that. I'm proud of that stuff. And people should be able to share. Absolutely. You know, if you share something that you're proud of and someone else criticizes you, they're just envious and jealous, and they need to do 100%. Some internal work to deal with that shit. Yeah. But, most of the time that's what it's about. But, there's that. And then there's the fact that my parents are retired and they're happy. And that they're just retired and happy, and that I helped them to do that. And then the other thing, which I'm really proud of, is closing my business and coming out and talking about it. Like, that's what I'm proud of. Do I have days where, like, yesterday was a bad day and I felt like shit about myself? Today I feel a bit better. Tomorrow I might not. I don't know. I'm still going through that journey, but I'm incredibly proud of myself for taking a decision that was incredibly difficult and I didn't want to make, and making it.
It's not. And so you should. And that's a great thing to, because it is. It's a brave decision to go, because we could have not been sitting here having this conversation. You could have gone, I'm going to get involved. I'm just going to keep grinding and keep doing it, knowing that it's actually not the right thing for you personally. Yeah. The business as a whole, whatever that looks like, but for you personally, on your personal journey, going, I know, right at this minute, I can't do this anymore, and that's a brave thing, because there's such. I was the same. There's such that conflict with going. Like, I remember we had just moved down here. I had before kids, but me and Kate, I thought, my wife's come down here. We've moved away from our family. Only in Essex, is not far, but we moved away. But we've come down here. We're trying to build a life here, and I've got to go. You know what? That money we've invested, we've lost it. I've got to close the business. It was but I know for me this is the right thing to do. I'm going to come out of it the other side, and the resilience and the same that, like, it's great to see, like you said, and I loved it how open and honest you are, especially on here, but also like on social, that you're open and saying that openly that you're still on this journey. Like, it's not I've closed that business now, I'm into this now, and I've completely figured everything out. But you're like, I'm on this journey of discovery, whatever that looks like for you personally, and I think that's a really brave, amazing thing to do. So.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about this beef I have with people, and it's not a criticism of people, because I'm really big on mental health. It's not a criticism of people, and I understand why people do it, but I'm here to say, like, I really want us to encourage people to have conversations, because I know that we're all walking around dealing with something. We might be going through a really great period in our lives where our business is flying and we're achieving success based on what we set out to do. But that doesn't last forever, and there will be a time that will come when you are struggling, and I'm not that sort of person that can sit around and go, yeah, everything's fine, I'm doing great, Sam. Close my business, I'm on to my new life. You know, and not at all. Like I'm only 4 months since I closed. It's still really challenging, and I'm still on that journey, and I know I'll get through it, but we'll see. It's been an interesting one so far.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Look, there's a couple of bits obviously that I always ask in the podcast. One, which I'm intrigued to find out a little bit about with you around culture.
Yes.
So, like, obviously, as a family-run business, and I mean, how many staff at the height? How many staff did you have, and what did that look like, and what was the culture like that you created there?
Yeah, we had about 10 staff at the height. We were highly efficient. Like I remember sitting down with someone who had a similar turnover on a business, and they had like 3 times the amount of staff. I was like, wow, okay. We were very efficient. We had a great team. But the culture and what that was like. On our website, before we had a new one done, I remember, I haven't got the text anymore because it doesn't exist. It's been closed. But we talked about family. There's family by blood and there's family by affinity. Like who you know, there's people within my community, the LGBTQ plus community, who are disowned by their parents or their family around their sexuality or their gender identity, and they're disowned, and they have to go out and create family for themselves. And that's it's not exclusive to that community. There's lots of people that do. So that family by affinity, the people that you have values, that you share values. We talk a lot in business about having a team that share your values, and for me, family was very much around, I wanted, and I think this comes back to how I talk in public, I would always say to my team, I have an open door policy, and I want you to be able to share anything with me. Now that requires a lot of unlearning around it all, because people have grown up in businesses and worked in businesses where that is not the way, so people are skeptical. But over time, it did start to work. And I would say, I want you to share anything with me. Nothing's off the table, and we'll deal with it. And what that enabled people to do was come in to work and feel safe and feel like if they're having a bad day, that they can say. I'd much rather someone come in through the door and go, I'm really struggling today. I don't know what to do. And we have a conversation. If we can, what do you need? Do you need to go home? But at least they feel like they can talk about it and nothing's off the table. It enabled me, when things went wrong on a productions level, like something went wrong and there was a customer complaint, what it enabled me to do was to have a conversation with my team where they would be honest and go, I couldn't be bothered. And I'd go, okay, cool. We're all human. Like, particularly if you're working in a factory, sometimes you just can't be asked. I'd much rather you go, I can't be asked. And I go, okay, cool. Because sometimes I can't be asked. So, and then we have a conversation. Okay, well, what's going on? And then we are able to deal with it in a much more effective way. But at the same time, you do need to draw a line somewhere, because you do need to sometimes put your foot down and go, actually, this isn't okay and it doesn't work and this isn't acceptable. So it's having a conversation around what the boundaries are, where the agreements are. And I would say that it worked very effectively. Hopefully they would all say the same. We're fallible humans. I know that sometimes we would have breakdowns, and working in a small team, it would be a bit more fraught. And I know there was lots of things I didn't do the way I'd like to in hindsight. But that was what I loved about running my own business. I mean, I do have another business, but it's just me at the moment. Was, as I said earlier, was getting me doing Jeremy's business Jeremy's way. Like, this is what I see doesn't work in the world, particularly around culture, being a gay man and not feeling like I fit in or I'm excluded on some levels, which was all through my career, and creating an environment where that isn't the case. And that was when I had a crisis of confidence around, why am I doing my business? A few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, everyone was like, oh, you bake cakes, must be so exciting. I'm like, actually, we're a manufacturing facility. It's not all like fucking sunshine and lollipops and Willy Wonka and the chocolate factory skipping through all day. Like, it doesn't work like that. We're making stuff, lots of stuff. And I was like, what am I doing? I had a moment. And I did a lot of soul searching and lots of conversations with people, and that was where I went, I get to create a business that makes a difference in the world, has an impact, a positive impact. People love to come into work. We get to donate money to charity and do this and do that, and that was what got me excited. And that's why I love running businesses, for that culture creation, I guess.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I guess that filters through by you starting it with your mum. And your mum and dad, and you're there, and then people then come into that and see that family bond, and you can tell you're talking about your parents, how close you are, and which is love. But you've got that family bond, and then that just filters through because it's a family-run business. Well, from that, or not?
I have to be honest, Sam. Me and my dad used to fight. Like, you wouldn't believe.
Really?
No, I'm not going to lie and say that it was all, all great. Not at all. Like, me and my dad used to butt heads so many times, have so many disagreements. And sometimes that did spill over into with the team. They would know about it. And me and my mum used to sometimes as well. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it was all great, but that family, coming back to support one each other, that commitment to each other, to that love for each other, and I think that's in terms of team members, it's that commitment, it's coming back to that commitment for your people, that you, whatever that looks like for you, but for me it was about a kind of unconditional support, and guidance, and creating a safe space that people love to come to work. That's what I'd come back to, but remembering we're all humans at the end of the day.
Love that. Okay, cool. Right, and then the other thing that I always talk about, and this is a lot of and obviously I guess leading into the mental health side of it, and what we've just talked about a little bit, but work-life balance. Like you're saying now that you want to create this position for yourself, a business that fits into a lifestyle. Did you then? How was work-life balance over the last sort of 13 years of running Mate? How did you manage to get a work-life balance? Was it?
Yeah, I did. I believe I did. I did and I didn't. It depended on what was going on. It's interesting you asked that question, because I always used to go, because I used to, particularly towards the end, be quite strict about when I wouldn't work. I always left me with the question, if I'd worked harder, would my business have succeeded? I don't think that is true, but it was something that kept me working harder or longer, not smarter. But now work-life balance is really important, and that, for me, the only way I can describe the best way of doing that for me is boundaries, putting boundaries in place and saying no, learning to say no, and dealing with the pushback that you will get when you say no and you put a boundary in place for someone. It's not comfortable.
Something I struggle with a lot.
Do you?
I struggle to say no a lot. I'm conflicted with two things for me. So one, because I look at life as an opportunity, when opportunities present themselves, I'm like, oh, that's good. I can do that. No, I haven't got the time to do that, but I really want to do that, so I'm going to do it. So and again, back to, I guess, the thing of running your own business, being your own boss, you go, well, I've my choice to do that. But then if that means then I've got to work 14 hours to make that happen, that's probably not good for my mental health. Not good because I'm not spending time with the kids, which I love doing, seeing them. So that you sort of always, there's a part of me that's conflict. But that's something I'm trying to learn a lot more. That's why I always ask the question, because I struggle with it. Work-life balance, I really struggle with. I've tried to put boundaries in place and say to myself, right, we talked about it offline earlier, didn't I? Getting up at 5 o'clock because I'm trying to do a couple of hours before the kids. But then that enables me to go to bed with my wife at night as opposed to me staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning. What's right or wrong, I don't know. I'm just trying to find a path.
Yeah, and I don't think this is the thing. Again, for me, like my view on it is there is no right or wrong. At the end of our lives, we have to be comfortable with the decisions we made. And for me, right and wrong is a moral judgment. And again, you can go and ask people, is this the right decision? Is this the wrong decision? You're going to get different views. If I'd have gone and asked lots of people when I closed my business, what should I do? I did.
Yeah.
I talked it through with trusted people.
Yeah.
I got a lot of the same responses, which was just close the business if you're not happy. But had I have gone out to more people, I would have got different responses.
Yeah.
And I say it in the article I wrote for Sussex Business Times, is that you have to be comfortable with the choice at the end of the day, and reconcile that for yourself. And our brains are naturally wired to want to weigh up, judge, assess. Did I do the right thing? Like, that's the most important part of any failure, is learning from the mistakes. But for me, I have to work really hard to not entertain the thoughts of regret around me closing my business. It's done now. Like, let it go, and look at what I could have done differently. That's the promise I made to myself now, is what are the behaviours and habits that didn't work for me or didn't work for the success of my business, and what do I need to do to change them? And that's what I'm going to work on now. But for me, there's no right or wrong decision. It's just a decision you make
at that time,
and then just let it go. This whole idea of, like, for you waking up at 5 a.m. to, like, if that works for you, then great. And I get, like, wanting to shift behaviour and try new things. Fantastic. But me getting up at 5 a.m. at the moment, absolutely not. I don't set an alarm. Unless I've got to get up, I don't set an alarm. And that's my choice now.
Nice.
I don't have dependents. I have a dog. So I don't have dependents, so I get that it's different for parents. And I always go,
whether I want to get up at 5 or not, I'm going to get up at about 6:30 anyway.
Yeah, but I do have huge respect for parents that particularly run their own businesses. Massive respect. But for me, it's at the moment that doesn't work for me, so I'm just going to do it. And I've got a few friends in my life who are very much into that world of, I'll, like, really strictly, like, I'll do what I want when I want, and so I'm sort of leaning towards that at the moment. But we'll see. Life is a journey and things change, and I might be different in 6 months' time. I might be coming in going, I get up at 5, work until 2, and I'm so stressed and tired. Slap me around the face, please.
But that's it. I think, like you said, it's learning. Not the looking back, like you said, 100% agree with you. Looking back at your journey, and especially with raising, I'm running it for 13. If you can detach yourself away from, like you said, looking back at regret, definitely not. But being able to go, I run a successful business for 13 years. Had it not been for the pandemic, maybe you'd have still been doing it, quite possibly. But those circumstances happen for whatever reason. It may be now that that's just happened for whatever reason, has put you on a different journey, which it has done, but you learn from those things, like you said, from running that business. Going, I don't actually want to run a business necessarily now that looks like that. I want to run a business that looks like this, because I want to lie in until 10 o'clock if I want to, and I want to get up and do X, Y, and Z, do the things I enjoy doing. Hence, like we spoke offline before, doing this, I absolutely love it. It's just having a chat and doing a podcast is one of the things out of all the different bits I do is probably up there with my favourite thing. So this isn't work. Me coming in and having a chat with you today, I'm buzzing about it, not thinking, I've got to get up early and get ready for the podcast. I can't wait for it, And there's going to be someone listening to this right now going, oh, no, judge. And I'm like, cool, okay, well, that's for me, it's that kind of... It's that acceptance that this is my life, this is my choice. I'm not affecting anyone. If I want to get up a bit later, then that is my decision at the end of the day. Who is someone else to judge? And that will change. That will change. Like 6 months, as I say, 6 months down the line, it's very likely going to be different. But for now, and that was the other thing I just wanted to say, the two things which I find most useful for me at the moment. But with closing my business and going through this massive shift in identity and career and everything, plus on top of that, the weight of the world at the moment, which is really affecting me, and I know it's affecting a lot of people with everything that's going on. First of all, is talk about it. The value I get, what I noticed over the past couple of days was this mental health spiral, and I realised I'm not talking to people and sharing what I'm dealing with, like my close friends, and saying, I'm really struggling at the moment. I am really struggling today with my mental health, but I'm speaking to other people about it and going, and then they're not going to fix it, but they go, yeah, I get it. Oh, me too.
I feel a bit better. And then the second thing is just being kind and gentle to myself, and just being like, and that for me, why I don't set an alarm at the moment. I've just closed my business of 13 years. Like, give me a break, please. That was where I've got to at that point. Like, just.
That's so self-aware though as well. Like that's the great thing, I think. It's coming, like you said, everything we learn from them things. You've come out of it, not come out of it. I've got to get straight into running a business that that's got to be turning over X amount. But you're just going. I'm just self-aware around what I need right now for my mental health and what I need for. I've done for 13 years, getting up at a certain time to make sure I'm there doing X, Y, and Z. To now go. I'm not going to do that and have that. That's very self-awareness.
I'm laughing because you're absolutely right, but I'm laughing at myself because the only reason I think like that is because I've got an army of people around me who love and care for me, that I'm honest with, that go, Jeremy, stop. You've just closed a business of 13 years. Give yourself a break. Like, I've learned that the hard. Like, some days I have to be reminded. But I've also spent the last, I think it's 6 years, in this very deep self-development journey around doing lots of throwing myself into that world of this self-development world of Brené Brown and Landmark and Tony Robbins, all that kind of world. And I love it. But it's made me super self-aware, and there's a weight that comes with that, because sometimes I just think, I thought this yesterday, I thought, I just wish I was more ignorant to the world. But at the same time, it allows me to be self-reflective and to have these kinds of conversations without judging myself too much. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, as we're coming to just towards the end now, I want to talk. Just tell the listeners what does the future hold for Jeremy Jacobs?
Oh, good question. I don't know now. I do know the answer, sort of. I'm still figuring it out, if I'm honest. I know how I want to work. I'm launching a podcast. Collaboration, not competition.
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
Make sure you listen to both of our podcasts.
Of course. I'll be tuning in, mate.
Which will be launched next week. Well, I say next week, but whenever this podcast, I don't know when this podcast's going out. It's being launched on the 7th of March. Awesome. And it's called, can I promote it very briefly?
Of course you can,
very
mate.
much. It's called How Not to Run a Business. And it's normalising the conversations, you can probably tell by what I've been saying today, around failure and mental health and what it takes to run a business, and understanding what it takes to be successful. And when I say successful, like our version of success through the failures of other people. So what have we learned from other people's failures? And just having a chat really like this.
Love it.
And having a conversation. So that's being launched next week. And then I've developed my own. I'm doing some consultancy work, coaching, mentoring, whatever you want to call it, with businesses, because I have all of this experience and I have an MBA. And I've just been told that I'm going to be the entrepreneur in residence for the Sussex MBA program, which is really cool. Exclusive, Sam, because no one else knows about that.
I love that.
And then it's to build something this year. So build a new business. Within the DEI space, so diversity, equity, inclusion space, definitely. I'm working on a project around authenticity in the workplace for the LGBTQ plus community. So despite all of this amazing work that's happened around that, that arena, people still, because that's what I did my dissertation on, people within my community still cannot feel like they cannot show up to work fully authentic, and that bugs the shit out of me. It really makes me upset, actually.
Sure.
Because I have a right to exist, and I have a right to live my life how I choose. So I'm working on a project around that, and just helping people, really helping people to have a happier existence and a less stressful existence. So come back to me in a year, and hopefully I'll tell you some amazing stuff I've been up to.
Well, we'll put that in the diary for a year's 12 months' time. We'll have the second episode, mate. Fantastic, and I wish you I can't wait to listen to the podcast. I'm sure. Look, just having the conversation today, and like I say, following your journey over the last few months and your openness and honesty as you have been on here is amazing, mate. And keep doing it, because I know it helped me. I know it's going to help lots of other people listening and people following your journey. So, mate, and I wish you all the success with that.
Thank you so much for having me on, and for what you do, actually, because you're an awesome human with amazing energy. So we need more of you in the world, in my opinion.
Mate, that's very kind. And look, we're going to wrap up a couple of last little bits. So, quick fire question. one piece of advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
What would I say to myself? It would be, I'm thinking on the fly because I haven't thought about this, but I know the answer. It would be, I would say to myself, you are entitled to your view and your opinion and your way of doing life for yourself. And other people are going to tell you that that's wrong or you shouldn't be doing it. But you're going to learn that it's okay and be self-expressed, be yourself. That was what I would encourage myself to be, because it's taken me 41 years to get to that point, honestly.
Amazing. Yeah. I think that's amazing. I love that. Right, the other bit I do, and I've stolen this from Stephen Bartlett. This is something he does. So
I thought you did. I was like, I've heard that bit. No, good. It's great.
I really like this. I love this idea, and it works really well. So my previous guest has left a question, and this is for you. So, I believe philanthropy should have a seat in every boardroom in every business. How do you promote a positive culture of philanthropy in your business, and how do you harness it to maximise positive effect?
That's a deep question.
I know. When he wrote it down, I was like, wow, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it's difficult for me to say because I'm my business.
Sure.
But I believe we all have a duty in life to give back and to be of service of others. Yeah. This incredibly selfish wealth creation and land grab of resources and things is just, I mean, it's happening in the world right now, and it's abhorrent, and it's not okay. There's lots of people out there with great wealth that are doing amazing things with the wealth that they've created. Sure. Bill Gates and all this sort of people like that. So I think for me, whatever level you're at, and whatever stage, let's say, rather than level, because I don't like that hierarchy, whatever stage of life you're at, you will have been through an experience or something that's been challenging that someone else is going through. And I feel like we all have a duty to support one another to go through that. That's what I do. I do a lot of work with the local college. I'm doing it with the MBA. I've done it with lots of accelerator programs and charities and things. Is I go and talk to people about my journey and my struggles. This is what I'm doing today, sharing my journey, sharing my story. And I say to anyone, if you ever want to speak to someone, like, I'm not one of these people that's like, oh yeah, speak to me. Like, I say free because I do charge my time. But if you're really struggling with something and you think I can help, message me and have a conversation with me, because I'd much rather someone reaches out to me and I help them than them stay silent and struggle or whatever. And I think that should be part of every business's culture. There needs to be a social element, in my view, to every business, whether or not they're a social enterprise or not. There needs to be an element of giving back, because we have a duty. Our businesses are created on an infrastructure that was paid for by everyone else, and so I feel like we have a duty to give back. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, mate. Brilliant.
Hooray!
Brilliant. Listen, I was, like I said earlier, I've sort of followed your journey over the last few months and seen your posts, and like I say, honestly, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
It's been an absolutely brilliant conversation, as I knew it would be. Can't wait to share the episode, mate. Absolute ledge. This is a wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.